Welcome to Bourbon Beers and Belvederes. I'm Adam.
And I'm Jerry.
And I'm Paul.
I'm Bryce.
As you can hear, we got a very special guest today. So, what we're gonna do is omit the bourbon and beer product reviews, and what we're gonna do is smoke an amazing cigar from Silent Hero Cigars, and that voice you heard was, excuse me, my throat is very dry. Bryce from Silent Hero Cigar. I believe you're the founder, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's very, very cool. So we're pretty excited about this, and I mean I'm sitting here drinking it with some whiskey, so I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the whiskey that I'm drinking it with, just because. So I recently picked this up from Total Wine. This is Fire and Flask Distilleries. It doesn't really have a name, but it's made with purple corn. They had a jar of purple corn there, and the owner, he said he wanted to try something different, something that wasn't being done. So that's what he made this with. This is a lower rye mash bill, rounded out with some malted barley. It's a 75, 15, 10 on the mash bill. It's aged for 1.1 years. So it's fairly young, but it's damn good. That purple corn does not give it a purple tint. We'll see what my poop looks like, see if it's purple after I drink this. It's 100 proof, and it's damn tasty. So I encourage anybody that sees it to pick it up. Jerry, what are you starting out with today, brother?
Well, when I was talking to Bryce, trying to get him on, I asked him what he likes to pair with his cigars, and he said he's a coffee guy or espresso or something like that. So I went with Westward Whiskey. It's their American single malt finished in stout casks. I get a lot of that chocolate coffee notes in it. So it's 90. I think I just saw it's 95 or 96 degrees here in Florida at 5:30 in the afternoon. It's too damn hot for a coffee right now. So this is the next thing. And I will say it's going great with this cigar. Those coffee chocolatey notes go great with this cigar, which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, I'm real excited about this cigar. I've been wanting to get into it for probably close to a year now. And I finally decided to reach out and get some of these cigars. And so yeah, I'm excited for this episode.
Paul, what about you?
I grabbed a Four Roses single barrel. It's an OES. So get a bunch of like red fruit, brown sugar notes off of it. It's going really nicely with this cigar so far. I got a Saz Rye backup that I'm going to pair with the cigar too to try to see how that works out too, going to a rye from bourbon. So looking forward to it.
Right on. Well, Bryce, historically, we would have started with you before we worked our way around, but Jerry said that since you're a coffee drinker with your cigar, and I assumed, hopefully correctly, that you do not have any whiskey in your hand.
I do not.
Okay.
Nope. Yep.
I just want to make sure I wasn't as much of an asshole as I felt by starting with Jerry, and then I couldn't really walk it back until after the fact. But
he's 2 hours behind us over there, and it's 93, I think he said.
Yeah.
It's too damn hot.
Yeah.
It's too damn hot for whiskey here at 5:30, but you know.
I mean, like you said, I mean, hell, even coffee's pushing it, man. I mean, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't mind iced coffee by any means, but it's just, I don't know, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
Well, I know that Jerry's got a sheet full of questions over there, so we're gonna start there and just kind of work our way through, and it'll probably just end up being, four old hens sitting around clucking at each other. But by the time we've gotten some of this whiskey into our system, so Jerry, take it away, sir.
Before we get into the questions, I want to talk about the cigar because we'll end up forgetting about it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's happened before. We got the Blend 88 Nicaraguan throughout 5x50. I am very much enjoying this cigar. A lot of like earthy or unsweetened baker style chocolate, some nice spice to it. little bit of woodsy, not too much of that woodsy note, but it's there. It's a really nice cigar. Probably like a medium plus body on it. Just now getting to the second third, so excited to see how this is gonna, if anything changes throughout. But it's fantastic smoke so far. That burn line is dead on, and not much to say about the construction other than it's damn near perfect.
Well, thank you. Yeah, sure. You know, that's under the age was, you know, I wanted to do, gentlemen, I've looked at this, the portfolio of my cigars as a whole, and I wanted it to be something to where, like, if you weren't so, like, say you were a new customer, I guess what I'm getting at, and you bought a 5 and you put them all in the humidor, and say you just wanted to grab a cigar to smoke or enjoy, you wouldn't do yourself a disservice to treat your that wine is that. There's nothing in there that, at least in my opinion, under so really designed not in a smoker, but it's something that I thought would be more universal rather than coming out with, you know, it's this jam in the hero that just put, you know, that just gave you that wallet to the neck. And you know, that blended was pretty fun to work through with the blend and even in the
Yeah, I think we lost you there for a minute, at least on my side. I don't know about the other guys. I don't know if the wind kicked up or something, but kind of lost you there. But
Yeah, it sounded like the Muppet Babies teacher, or no, I'm sorry, the Charlie Brown teacher. The wah, wah, wah,
damn
wah,
it!
there you go.
Damn it!
Sound better now.
What part did it kick off?
immediately.
Oh, sick. Well, I guess that makes it easier. But no, like all I was saying was, like, you know, the Blend 88 is definitely a very sentimental cigar to the core line, and it's really blended to be approachable by all walks of life when it comes to smoking cigars. You know, you don't have to be, you know, the 30-year veteran that's smoking cigars. I mean, it'll be as pleasing to them as it will be to the person that just started last week. You know what I mean?
No, it's definitely a nice, approachable cigar. Nice spice to it. Yeah, very, very nice so far. But yeah, let's just start out. Introduce yourself. Obviously, we said your name is Bryce and you're founder, owner of Silent Hero. But just kind of a little bit of a background on you, and then a little bit about the brand Silent Hero Cigars.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up on Kent Island, you know, over in Maryland by Annapolis. Split my time really between there and Dundalk, Baltimore. And I actually enlisted in the Army at the age of 18. I actually turned 19 in basic training, and then got through there, and then started working as a 35 Sierra or signals analyst, and then went to, you know, NSA Washington over by DC, and then worked as a targeting officer actually, and then always kind of been in the background for me. You know, they've been really, it's always been kind of that reset button for me to kind of take a break, you know, get my head together and reattack whatever's going on in front of me. And when I got out of the military, I got out of the military in 2021. When I noticed when I got out, I was having really bad issues. Like, you know, my anxiety was all over the place. My nightmares were just really horrendous, and I wasn't really able to have that kind of quality of life by any means. And cigars were kind of that common denominator. And it was kind of that light bulb moment. You know, we packed up our stuff after I got out of the military, moved out to Wyoming, and went outside. I think it was 2 or 3 months after we lived here, and was kind of that light bulb moment of, I don't know what that would really look like to start my own cigar company, but I want to genuinely and aggressively pursue what that it looks like. And then, I mean, hell, I gave it about a year, really strategic plan, at least, from what I thought, and then came up with the name of Silent Hero Cigar, and I mean, honestly, the hardest part was trying to figure out how to get the cigars. I mean, the whole core principle of the cigar company, and that's the biggest issue. Started selling my cigars back last August 1st, I believe, is when I actually put everything on the market to sell. And, here I am, almost August 1 of 2025, and I'm in 30, it's growing by the day. So 30 plus locations, throughout the country. I've given thousands of dollars back to non-for-profit organizations that help veterans with PTSD. And I guess I probably should have prefaced that too. When I started Silent Hero Cigar, a core principle of the business model is a focus on PTSD and mental health for veterans, and mainly veterans, because that's the community that I closely associate with, but it goes beyond just that. You have your first responders and just PTSD as a whole. And so we pledge 10% of our profits every single month to not-for-profit organizations that help veterans with PTSD in some way, shape, or form, whether that be service dogs, which are, that's more of what I try to push, because I have a service dog that has been with me for 2 years, and he's drastically has changed my life. And I mean, but again, it ranges. I mean, like, some of these organizations, they have service dogs. Others have almost like morale events to where they take veterans out to go fishing or hunting. And then, I mean, hell, the last year I ran a raffle essentially. And to enter that raffle, I think it was like 40 or $50, depending on what you end up buying. And we took the proceeds from that raffle and fed 70 homeless veterans and their families here in Cheyenne over the Christmas holiday. So it's just, it's a very blessed position to be in, and I'm very happy to see that, the fruits of my labor and the fruits of the labor of my team are coming into fruition, and we're able to actually help our veterans that feel like they're by themselves, when in reality they have a whole team behind them and a whole family.
Yeah, that's that whole charitable part was one of the main reasons I wanted to get you on here. Obviously, number one is for the cigar, but we like to try to give back when we can. We've done one giveaway where you had to donate to, I think we had 2 or 3 veterans charities that we didn't really partner up with, but kind of chose and donate. And we gave out a bunch of cigars, beard oils. I think we gave out a couple whiskey samples, whatever. So that was one main reason that I saw that, and figured it would be perfect for have you on here, since that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're what are we at, 2 years now doing this, Adam?
Yep. Right at 2 years, yeah.
And we're trying to get more and more into helping that way.
Yeah.
And we got a giveaway that we tried to do last month, and it kind of failed. But we're going to try to revamp it and do something better this time.
Sure.
But what is when you pick these charities or these organizations, how do you vet them? Is it just something that you've dealt with over the years, or you actually have to deep dive and make sure they're good? Because I know there's a lot of them out there that, well, not a lot. There's a few bad ones out there that say they're good and they're not.
Yeah. So, I mean, really what it comes down to is, if I find one, or one is recommended to me, or say, hell, I've even had some reach out, what I'll end up doing is I always schedule a meeting with them and get them on the phone with either them, if they're running it solo, or there's one called QRF that I'm actually working with as well, and those guys have like an entire board. And so essentially the vetting process is, of course, you want to get their 501, C3 and all of that good stuff. But you also want to understand where is that.
Yeah, we're losing you again.
Jesus Christ.
It's like that one spot.
Hello?
We got your audio before your video, but that's, it is what it is.
I'm not here today.
Mm-mm.
Let's see. Try to be. What about now? Better?
Ish.
How was that?
Yeah.
Do you think it's fine if I leave and come back for a second?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should be good.
Oh. Good Lord.
How's that?
That's better.
All right. All right. No more technical difficulties for me, I promise. So essentially, as far as the vetting process really goes, we really try to get those guys on the phone. And because, again, I mean, you get the appropriate paperwork like the 501(c) and all of that good stuff just to make sure that they're a legitimate place. But also the phone call is to understand where is that money going?
Right.
And because I don't want it to go towards you detailing your company's truck or you getting new rims for your car. You know what I mean? Like that's not the point of what I'm doing. And I would say 10 times out of 10, every time I talk to them about where is that money going, there is no issue of explaining where those funds are being used and explaining to them like kind of a rough range as to how much the donation would be. And every single time they'll sit there and they'll tell me exactly what that money or that amount of money would do or help or whatever it may be. Like a really good example, there was a company that we partnered with called Project Kenny that does service dogs. And they actually do all of the dog training here in Wyoming, up in Casper, which is in the middle of the state. And I think we gave them 250 bucks or something like that. And it ended up paying for, I believe, if my memory doesn't fail me here, it paid for their dog's dog food for the entire month and a couple months after that. So I was able to take a little bit of that mental load off of that veteran. And that's again, it's all about the small victories. The big ones are flashy and cool, but it's the little things that add up that'll creep up and get you if you don't pay attention to them.
Do you have no, just lost my train of thought. Do you have what are you supporting this month? Do you have that, or is it just like do you do different ones each month, or is it like a few different ones per month?
So typically what I've been doing for the last year is I've been partnering with different ones each month. And for this one, for these last couple months, and I'll probably do it until we hit the goal. So essentially back in June, when I did the 1,000-yard stare release, essentially when I told people about that, all of those, like the donations and all of that from May and June we're going to go towards sponsoring a service dog outright to a veteran here in Cheyenne. And we're just short of what we need. I think we need another $2,000 to be able to donate. And so I've been just keeping that money really recirculating. And then once I hit, I think it's 5,200, then I'll go over to the Dogs and Tags place, which is the local place here in Cheyenne that helps veterans with service dogs, and give them a check for that amount, and then fully sponsor a service dog for those guys. So that way they don't have to worry about coming out of pocket any of that money.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. That's a good little thing. So I know those dogs, I'm sure, well, you've dealt with it, but those dogs seem to really help.
Yeah, they're
veterans or whoever has them.
They're a huge help. I mean, the same place that I'm working on sponsoring a service dog is actually the same place that I got mine from. And I mean, I can't talk enough about just service dogs, or at least my dog in general. I mean, they do anything from opening your fridge door and getting you a bottle of water when you're having a bad episode or attack. And I mean, hell, mine even actually is a little bit of an early warning system for my nightmares. So he'll put a paw on me and everything and wake me up. And if that doesn't work, he starts barking in my face and shit. So yeah, I like I said, I can't talk enough about how helpful those dogs are.
That's awesome. But yeah, you talked about the 1,000-yard stare, and that sold out pretty damn quick, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's good. Sorry.
Well, you could talk about that one, and then do you have any other specialty releases coming out, or do you have any plans, whether it's quarterly, once a year, whatever it is, for specialty releases?
Yeah, so the 1,000-yard stare, man, that one sold out in 10 hours, which was, because I woke up and saw that alert on my phone, and I had to wipe my eyes a little bit because I was like, man, is that actually what I'm seeing? And then, so the 1,000-yard stare, that one in particular, that one's actually going to be an annual release. So every June moving forward is going to be, I'm going to release that one. I'm actually working on doing another line essentially of cigars that are going to be a different take on it. I think what my company is really based out of is a lot of story and a lot of insight as to letting people know that they're not alone, kind of thing. And so the next line is going to kind of follow more of a storyline. So essentially, when you're smoking a cigar, it's going to represent who the like an individual or something of that nature, rather than it just being the name of the cigar.
Do you have release dates or approximate dates that you're looking at?
No.
Blend comes together.
Yeah, that's the thing too that I'm currently working on, because it's a little bit tricky, because again, it's almost like I've got to blend someone's personality into a cigar. And so once I get a good grip on the blend, and I like what's coming out of it, and I think it's telling that story appropriately, then I'm going to end up posting it online, as far as letting people know that this is coming. One thing that I got a lot of backlash for, if you will, was I didn't do pre-orders essentially for the 1,000-yard stare. So moving forward, for those, either the new line that's coming out, or if it's like a specialty release for whatever reason, that's actually going to be how I'm going to start doing it moving forward, is having those pre-orders and pre-releases, and that way people can ensure that they're getting their hands on it before everything goes live, and then they're upset that it got sold out.
Yeah, you don't have to wake up at 5 a.m. to make a purchase.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what goes into creating a blend, or like where you get your tobaccos from, and and just how the blends come together?
Yeah, so when it comes to getting the tobacco, so I use a factory down in Nicaragua, right around S2E, and that's also partially reason why a lot of my a lot of my cigars have predominantly Nicaraguan tobacco in them, besides a couple. And so doing the blending process to me is a lot of fun because it's kind of like putting a puzzle together, but instead of it being like a traditional puzzle where it's got all these different sides and you can, kind of piece everything together, it's almost like a puzzle that's a blank canvas, if you will. And you kind of have to make it work with your own, like, I guess, resources or your palate, whatever kind of makes sense to you. And as long as you are able to convey through the blend what you're wanting to, that's the biggest challenge and the biggest importance. I mean, obviously, when it comes to doing the blend, like actually blending it and using the right tobaccos, that's also kind of tricky because, like, say, I don't know if you guys have had the LFD double Ligero before.
No.
I've had a few LFDs. I can't remember which ones I've had.
It's a pretty stout cigar. So the Ligero is the strength of the tobacco plant, essentially. And the problem is when you start doing predominantly Ligero, I guess like a predominantly Ligero ratio into that cigar blend, you start running into issues. So you can have burn issues, you can have combustion issues. The aroma is not really that big of a concern because you have the wrapper and you have Seiko as well that's able to, contribute to that aroma that you're getting. But the burn and keeping it lit is the biggest thing, because I'm sure you guys probably don't want to light up a cigar, and I know that sure as hell as I don't. You don't want to light up a cigar and then 5 seconds later, after not puffing on it, and now it's out again. And you're kind of sitting there and you're like, damn it, like I got to relight the damn thing and go through it all. You know what I mean?
Right.
And not only that, but I mean, I don't mind doing like touch-ups and things of that nature, but when you have to constantly touch up the cigar, that's, to me, that starts to get a little bit annoying. And so, sorry, I'm shifting gears into my house here. There was a pretty nice storm rolling through, and I did not want to get hailed on. And so that's really kind of the tricky part, because again, one of the cigars, and I'll give you guys this tidbit. One of the cigars that I'm actually working on blending is going to be a double or a triple Ligero. And so it's a very strong cigar, which I don't, as I said earlier, I don't have any cigars in my arsenal right now as far as my core line that are super strong. They're just not. And so that's really what I'm kind of playing with right now, because what I'm kind of running into is I'm running into a burn issue. And I just don't want to give something that's, half-assed or that's, shittily done. You know what I mean? Like, if it's going to be a strong cigar, I want to make sure that it's got all the right components of a good cigar as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that, like you said, touch-ups are one thing. Try to get it back on track, but having to relight it every 5 seconds, it kills the experience. Like, I've had some cigars where it's either my humidor, the Bovito pack went out on it or something, and it was just too dry or over humidified, and it just doesn't want to stay lit, and they just end up tossing the cigar. And it's ranged from everything from cheap $2 cigars up to $10, $12, $15 cigars. It just kills the experience.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't know about these guys. That's it for all my like professional questions. All the other questions are just kind of like fun shoot to shit questions. So if these guys have anything else they want to ask, they could go for it. Otherwise, we'll just get into the fun stuff. You guys have anything?
Not really in terms of the cigar. I was going to ask you some questions more about your military service, but we can save that for in a little while. Paul?
No, sorry. I'm in and out. I'm in a storm. So I'm just catching bits and pieces of what you guys are saying. So
So I guess we'll start with out of your core 5, what's your favorite of?
Man, it's a toss up between the man. That's like trying to pick which kid is your favorite kind of thing. Um, it's got to be either the Founder's Choice Maduro. That one is blended. I wanted to show people that, just because something is a Maduro doesn't mean that it's going to be a full strength punch you in your face kind of thing. It's very full flavor, don't get me wrong, but it's not very heavy. And so either that one or um the Candela. The Candela is probably, it goes back and forth for sure.
Yeah, that Candela is one that I've heard a lot, like your Candela specifically. I've heard a lot of good things about. I don't know, that green wrapper just kind of looks a little weird sitting with all the other dark brown ones. So I'll definitely be grabbing that one to try out. But I've heard great things about that Candela. I haven't had one yet, so I figured that'd be a good one to start with, or a bad one. It might just put out the other ones because that one might be too good from what I've heard. We got over that question. So if you could have a cigar with anyone, living or dead, who would it be and why? I hate this question. I haven't been asked it, but I've heard it a few times. I hate it just because when I hear people talk about it, I start thinking, and I have no idea who I say. So
yeah,
I figured I'd be on the question side of it, so I don't have to think about it.
Yeah, no, no, it's a good question. I mean, I think if I had to choose, dead or alive, I would go with my grandfather. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. My grandfather passed away back in 2019 due to Alzheimer's, like rapid progression Alzheimer's, and I spent the last 2 weeks with him when he was in in-house hospice, and again, those 2 weeks of him not being able to talk, and he doesn't, he knows people are there, but he was nonverbal towards the end, and so you didn't really know if he knew who who the family was essentially, but he wasn't. I mean, he wasn't freaked out, so I mean, I guess I guess he had to know to some extent, and but no, he was a big person in my life that I lost, and I remember smoking my last cigar with him, and to be able to have a cigar with him again and be able to just shoot the shit, and he was, I always gave him shit because he was a GM mechanic for master mechanic for 40 years, and the guy loved the acid Cuba Cubas.
That was
Loved
my
them.
first cigar.
Just loved them. And I mean, and he wouldn't, I'd be like, here, Pop, try this, man. Like, you'll like this. You smoke cigarettes all your life. Try this. And he's like, no, I'm partial to it now. And it's like, all right, dude, like, whatever, man. Float your boat.
Yeah. Yeah, my grandfather had the Alzheimer's and a few other things. It's a shitty time because they're in there, but they're just not connecting the dots, and it's just a horrible time,
Yeah.
especially to see them because you want to help, but there's nothing really you could really do about it. It's just kind of hope that 1 second he just turns to you and it's like, oh shit, it all connected. Yeah. But yeah, I said Cuba Cuba was my first cigar. Do you remember your first cigar?
It's the same one, the Cuba Cuba.
I think that might be one of the main first ones out. Like, I'm trying to think. There might be one before, but that was the first one that I actually remember smoking. And the more I talk to people, that seems to be one of the. It's either that or they end up getting some like double or triple Maduro cigar that puts them on their ass and stop smoking cigars for 10 years or something like that.
Right.
So I know Adam wanted to talk about the military, so I'll ask a question to do a little segue. It's kind of, do you have a, and I know Paul likes this question. What kind of, you got any stories, whether it's, well, 2 stories, one from Silent Hero and then one from your military career, if you could talk about it. Anything funny or frustrating, something that pissed you off or anything, but it's meaningful to you in some way or form.
Yeah, so the Silent Hero side of it all, the one that this story is actually it's very meaningful. I did a podcast with the Real Smoke guys
Yeah.
last last Christmas around that time, and it was a mental health podcast essentially. You know, they had like their own therapist on or like licensed psychologist that I believe worked in the prison system, and doing that podcast with those guys, they actually had someone reach out to us and let us know that that podcast traumatically helped them, and they actually started going and getting the help that they figured. I'm trying to remember what was said in that message, but it was they knew it was always there, and it was kind of that lingering problem in the background. But that podcast gave them the courage to take that step towards getting out there and speaking to someone that can obviously help them in a different capacity. And
That's
so
awesome.
that's that kind of is the perfect pinpoint of why I do the cigars. I do the company. The cigars, I always say the cigars are just the vehicle and the vessel to convey the point that's at hand of PTSD and how that's affecting our veterans and trying to help them out. And then the military, when I got a part of the new team when I was a young E3 at the time, um they would do energy drinks, and those guys would do like Grizzly, Long Cut, Wintergreen, and Levi Garrett and Redman and all that stuff. And meanwhile, I'm 20 years old or 21 years old, and these guys are asking me like, do I do any type of nicotine or whatever? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I smoke cigars at the end of the day, whatever. And they were like, do you want anything to drink? As far as like, energy drink wise. And I was like, I don't really do energy drinks like that. I'm more of a coffee guy. And the role that I was in, I had more of a speaking role. And so those guys, once they would get done their, you know, I guess their work, if you will, that kind of feeds what I'm going to say, they would leave and go upstairs and they would essentially go and buy drinks or get food, whatever. And so they were leaving one time and they asked me, they're like, hey, why, what coffee do you want? We're going to go grab something. And I was like, oh, if you can just do like a 2-shot espresso from the Starbucks up there, I was like, that's perfect. And they're like, all right, perfect. Came back and I noticed it was like a small cup, but it was like, I mean, it didn't have 2 shots of espresso in it. I mean, it was way more liquid than that. And I asked them, I was like, what the hell is that? And they're like, oh, it's a cappuccino. I was like, okay, that's whatever. Those fuckers put 3 extra shots in there, so it was 5 shots worth of espresso. And I got probably 3/4 of the way done with that because I was like, man, I'm just gonna slam this before we go into a briefing. I was on the way to essentially to the briefing, and my face just was like just pins and needles, and legs started shaking real bad, started sweating, and I was walking next to a full bird colonel in '06, and of course it was a Marine colonel as well. And I got so freaked out from that feeling that I actually panicked and grabbed that colonel as an E3, which is not the greatest thing to do. And of course he like dropped all of his shit that was in his hands and he's like staring at me and he's like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I was like, I was like, dude, I don't feel good. I was like, I don't feel good at all. And you just hear in the back of the office, my whole team just erupt laughing. And they're like, got you, motherfucker. Welcome to the team, man. And I was like, what? And, the colonel was like, what did you guys do to him? He's sweating. Like, he looks like hell. And they were like, oh, we put 5 shots of espresso in that fucker's drink. And man, he was pissed. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there, I got my hands on my knees and like trying to breathe. Because I was like, oh boy, we're along for the ride at this point, man. We're so locked in. And yeah, every time after that, they would go upstairs and they would get me whatever to drink, and they would have the barista on the top put +5 shots. And that was just like the running joke from that point forward.
I was certain that since you had mentioned Levi Garrett and Redman and all this, that you were going to say they brought you back a cup of tobacco spit, because it does
Uh,
taste a
Yeah,
bit
that's
like
what I thought.
espresso with all frothy and dark and disgusting. That's
Well,
what I thought was coming.
there was one night we got there at like 2:30 in the morning or something, and we had left there the prior night. Like, I mean, I think I was home for all of maybe 3 or 4 hours. I mean, I wasn't even home that long, and came back, and my master sergeant at the time that was working down there with us had looked at me, and he's like, he's like, Wygal, how you doing, man? I was like, dude, I'm sucking. I was like, I'm tired. I was like, we got a busy day too. I was like, holy shit. And he's like, here, and he pulls out a tin of Copenhagen, like long cut, and he's like, here, just he was like, take a pinch of that, get a good one. He's like, don't be a little girl about it. And he was like, get a good one, throw it in there, and you'll be fine. He was like, you'll wake up in no time. And I was like, are you sure about that? And he's like, oh, dude, he's like, I'm so sure. Man, I threw that thing in there, and probably like the first 5 minutes, I mean, dude, I was alert. Like, I was wide awake. And then the 6th minute after that, I was like, hey, man, we supposed to be spitting that? And he looked at me and was like, yeah, you're supposed to spit that. And started throwing up and shit. And oh, man. And so, no, between the 5 shots of espresso and them always they would put like, I think it's a roll, right? Where it has 5 of them in there. And
Yeah.
every single month they would put a roll onto my desk. And by the time I finished, I had so much tobacco, like chewing tobacco on my desk, that our new combatant commander was like, dude, you need some help. He's like, what is this, man? Like, do you have a problem? And I was like, no, I was like, I don't have a problem, sir. I was like, I promise. I was like, these guys just put this shit on my desk. I was like, I don't do it like that. And then, like, as I started working with them more and more in the, and especially those times where I was there very late, I would do like a real tiny pinch to kind of get me through the evening. And then, but yeah, no. And plus my wife, damn near killed my ass when she found out that I was doing that.
Uh,
So, Adam, you had some questions about
just the basic shit. When I don't know if you said when it was that you enlisted. So when, were you deployed? If so, where to? That kind of shit.
Mhm.
Just the basic run of the mill stuff.
Yeah. So I enlisted in January of 2017, I want to say, or maybe, yeah, 2017. And then went through Fort Jackson for basic training, and then went over to AIT, or my tech school, and went over to Pensacola, Florida for, I think it was like 6 months or 4 months or something like that. And then spent the rest of my time in service over at NSA Washington. And so essentially what we were doing there, um, was helping troops in contact as far as like doing ISR and providing support, via drone and all of that good stuff. So fortunately, but I guess unfortunately, because that was something that I really wanted to do when I was in the service, was, I never got to fully deploy, but I guess from what I was doing on a day-to-day basis, I mean, it's not the same, but still being able to be helping in, combat situations, and helping those guys get the job done that they're obviously there to do, that are very skilled at what they do.
Sure. Did you say if it was Army or Marine Corps?
Army.
So you kind of gave us, your pay scale, or your pay grade, I guess, your whatever it is that they call it in the military. But what did you, what if you can tell us, what was your job duty? What were your job duties? Like what?
Yeah. So I finished as a E4 promotable, so I was a specialist essentially, and put the promotable part in there because at the time they wanted me to go over to I think I could be wrong. I don't know where no, I don't want to say it, but I don't know where they have the NCO school anymore. It's been a while, but they wanted me to go to that school and become, an E5 or an NCO. And I was kind of at that crossroads in the path of, do I want to stay in the military or do I want to get out? And considering how banged up I was mentally, I was like, you know what, like it would be a disservice to, my teammates and my unit with knowing that I've got mental health issues at this point and I just need to get out and get that squared up. Um, and so what we were doing on a day-to-day basis, so ISR is essentially, surveillance and reconnaissance. And so we would essentially track high value targets and build target packages on those people and provide the information and all that good stuff. So that way, whatever unit was available, as far as, rangers or whatever may have you that goes after those high value targets, have the ability and the knowledge to do so. And again, you're providing the information, you're tracking those people, and you're watching all of that unfold. So you're watching all that work that you just gave them unfold, and hopefully, that you didn't fuck anything up in that, because now you got real life people that are
Yeah.
executing on that plan that you and your team just cultivated.
Yeah, it's a little extra skin in the game when there's lives on the line based on your your work, your information. I would imagine. I haven't served myself. I wasn't able, but I can imagine how that would feel, or what that would be like, at least a little bit.
Yeah, it feels like high stakes poker. You know what I mean? Like very light, but not money wise, but life and death wise. And because again, I mean, I've always kind of had that sense, whether it was, the good side of, if you will, the good side of the table or the bad side of the table, as far as good and bad people. Again, that's, somebody's dad, brother, uncle, whatever may have you. And so, especially for our troops, I mean, that's obviously what we gave a shit the most about. And, it's understanding that this isn't watching Call of Duty here unfold. Like, this
Right.
is somebody's dad, and, they might have a 2-month old baby at home, and this is their last deployment kind of thing. So that is very stressful, and it plays a lot on your mind as well, because,
Sure.
you know, eh, if you get something wrong and then you lead somebody or you lead a team or whatever into, a trap or an ambush or something like that, I mean, they relied on your intel.
Right.
So that's a scary that's a scary position to be in time after time.
So, what was the impetus for your enlistment? Is it a generational thing? Do you have family members that was your dad, your grandfather, or something like that? Maybe your mom, or what made you want to join? Essentially,
Yeah.
not even enlist. Just join the military. What was your
Yeah, so my grandmother's dad was a World War II medic, or no, not medic, logistics guy. And so he was actually awarded, I believe, a Bronze Star for taking supplies to troops behind enemy lines, and, under direct fire and all kinds of stuff of that nature. And so he's been one of the only people that I've known from my family perspective that has been in, and I believe, some of my distant family relatives have been in the military as well. But the biggest motivator and the biggest driving factor for me was like, hey man, like, I was not good at school whatsoever. I had no self discipline. I had no accountability. Um, I was just kind of all over the place. I mean, the way that my life looked and that outlook it was just pitiful. I mean, and I knew that I wanted more, if that makes sense.
sure?
And so I ended up actually looking at a couple different branches to begin with. Like, I wasn't really too pressed on going into the Army. I looked at the Air Force because I wanted to do the pararescue program with those guys. And then went over to the Coast Guard and then looked at the maritime law enforcement, and they have a kind of a special forces unit, if you will, for counter piracy. So like the maritime security response team, that was something that I was very, very interested in, but they had an 8 year long wait list for that. And I was not willing to wait 8 years to do that job.
Sure.
And so I was actually, so I went over to the Army, and then I wanted to do the 68 whiskey, which is a combat medic. And I was going to have an option 40 select added into that contract. So essentially, I would be able to have a guaranteed shot to go to RASP or Ranger School and try out for that, that program or that team. And as I was sitting there doing the body composition, them doing like the height and weight, and you have to lift a certain amount of weight or whatever. Um, my I got a phone call from my dad that actually told me that my grandfather had diagnosed with Alzheimer's and dementia, and they had told him, or told my dad essentially, that he was rapidly deteriorating. Like they gave him probably 4 or 5 months before he was really in bad shape, and so I ended up going out of the bathroom and talking to that recruiter in the Army, and was like, hey, do you have a job that puts me back at Fort Meade in Maryland? And that's how I got into the 35 Sierra.
Yeah, I don't guess I realized that piracy was that big of a thing over here. I know there's a Russian company that you can pay them like 15 grand and go over there, and they'll take you into pirate infested waters in the hopes that you can kill some pirates.
Yeah.
But which is fucking crazy. Russians are nuts, man. Yeah. So where was your basic at? I'm sorry if you already mentioned that, but I'm curious to know.
It was Fort Jackson in South Carolina.
Okay. All right. I've got a brother-in-law that I believe that's where he was, but not he went there to go to drill sergeant school.
Oh, yeah.
And so now he's stationed in Hawaii. But he did go out there for a while. My sister loved it out there. Had good things to say about that. I never made it out there, but so obviously the cigars, the military plays into what you got going on there, at least with the name.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them, like the founders, or what did we have today? The Blend 88, is that what it's called?
Yeah, but
are you planning to do anything more with the brand that would be military themed or anything like that besides just the name? Or are you going to stick with the way things are? Have you thought about that? Is that anything at all?
Yeah, so really the biggest thing that once I kind of start to iron out the blend for that next line of cigars that I'm doing, I'm gonna start tackling doing a cigar for the Army's birthday and doing that as another annual release. So I want to have a couple of cigars that are already blended out, that are essentially well received by the public, and have those annual releases throughout the year. That way it kind of keeps it going and keeps it, I don't want to say interesting, but it keeps people engaged, if you will. And then the biggest thing with Silent Hero cigar is trying to find that happy medium. So like if you look at a company like Warfighter Cigar, those guys make phenomenal stuff and they've got phenomenal branding. But if you look at their their entire, or their staff, like their immediate staff, those guys are all downrange, combat guys. And so their stories kind of align with what their brand is, which is fantastic. And with Silent Hero, what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to make is a blend of that military theme to show people that obviously it's a veteran-owned cigar company, but also in the same breath having it be a theme of mental health as well, because again, that's the big driving factor, and the big thing for us as a company is, obviously we want, we're proud to be veteran owned and all of that good stuff, but it's also the fact that we want to make sure that people don't lose sight of, of that mental health battle that is not seen physically. It's, and again, that's why, like, if you see the t-shirt hanging up behind me, it's actually the guy in the middle of the band.
Yep.
And we ended up going with that logo because it's just a generated person, and it looks like if you took the hat off and obviously didn't have like the collar for the uniform, it would look like a normal person. And so it's portraying that you just don't know who is battling with those types of things. And when you're doing that, again, you're creating you're creating kind of like that full circle of just awareness. So it gets people to talk a little bit more. It gets, people to be a little bit more comfortable with it, so it's not so taboo and so intimidating. Just because someone reaches out to you and wants to communicate with you that they're having a bad day, it's not necessarily meaning that it's life or death. I mean, it could be, don't get me wrong. Like, those crises definitely happen.
Sure.
But more often than not, just having that open dialogue and that open communication and establishing that support system around, especially that veteran, is leaps and bounds going to help them in the long run in all aspects of their life, to be quite frank.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I dig it, man. I think it's a good thing that you're doing there. We've got a buddy of the show that does something similar with 10th Mountain Whiskey.
Hmm.
His name is Brian Dewar. If you've ever heard of Dewar's Whiskey,
Yeah.
that's his family that
Oh shit.
yeah, he's of that lineage.
Oh shit.
And so he was in the Marine Corps, but he's got a charity that I believe he was running the charity before he was working with 10th Mountain Whiskey, and they just kind of folded it all together. It's called BC40 Hunts, and he takes veterans on these amazing hunting trips that that they wouldn't get to go on otherwise. The last I talked to him about it, he was trying to organize a safari, and I don't know if he's managed to get that going or not. But they'll take him on elk hunts and all these cool things, and I believe he probably brings them to your neck of the woods from time to time. They're in Colorado.
Oh yeah, probably.
But if you enjoy whiskey at all, I would have to suggest that you seek out 10th Mountain Whiskey. You can buy it on their website. So, he does something similar. So we try to do as much as we can, but none of us are veterans.
Sure.
So, we try to give back from a civilian perspective, but anything more involved in that would be somewhat disingenuous because we've not been through, what veterans have been through. We've not even experienced the trauma of boot camp. My dad was a Marine Corps drill instructor, so I like to say that I experienced a little bit of it at least, growing up. But nothing like what they actually experienced when they, So, it's a good thing, man. It's a good thing. We were excited to get you on and help promote this in any way that we can. So when you got out, well, first of all, before I ask that, how many employees do you currently have? I guess.
So 2, including myself, full time, and then I've got 1 that's actually part time.
Okay. Are you the only veteran?
Yes, and then the other person that I guess would be full time is my wife. So she is the spouse of a veteran, so she definitely is very very, very intimate of the struggle that I've been going through for 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, spouses may as well be, at least part-time military, or considered part-time veterans after it's over with. At least they go through it all with you. So, but when you got out, did you go straight to this, or is there some in between time there that you were doing other things, a little bit of this, a little bit of that?
Yeah. So when I got out, I had two jobs that were kind of in front of me. So one was like essentially an insurance broker, and then the other route was my wife was actually working at this Greek restaurant. And to kind of give some context there, my wife is actually Greek as well, and she had been working there for about, I mean, hell, probably 10 years at that point. And so she was very familiar with the people that own the business and all that good stuff. And when I got out, I went over there to see the owner. His name is Mike, and went in there full suit, man. I mean, it's like, went in there and sat in the bar, and I'm the only guy wearing, you know, pants. You know what I mean? Like everybody else is in shorts and shit. And so I'm sitting in front of this guy, and I told him, like, because I essentially wanted to shadow him. I wanted to shadow what it was like to run a business. I wanted to understand the logistics side of it. Like, I understood I wasn't going to do a restaurant, but
Right.
again, parts of business are applicable no matter what you're in.
Yeah.
And so, sure enough, I mean, he was kind of hesitant, and I told him, I was like, "Hey, man, look, like, I'll do it for free. Like, I'll work here for free. Like, I want the exposure." And took me in, and I mean, to this day, he's a very big mentor to me, and not just as a business person, but as a friend as well. And I think I was there for about a month, and all of the stuff that I was doing, like I was doing, accounts payable, I was running the supply chain side of it, like I was doing negotiations, like doing the liquor. I mean, like I was fully ingrained, like I had always been there. And he was like, "You know what? Like, I want to keep you around. Like, let me pay you. Like, I want to pay you now." And so I did that for about a year and some change, and then as soon as I got out of that, my wife and I just had a newborn, and so our son was 8 weeks old at the time, and we packed everything up, got in our car, and we drove all the way out to Wyoming, and ended up renting like a house in Casper, Wyoming, which is about, I want to say, two hours north of me,
Mm-hmm.
and lived there for a couple months. And I got a job interview down here in Cheyenne, and it paid very well for what I was trying to do. And I got taken on as a staff accountant at a big construction company down here, and moved down here, bought the property that I'm currently on, and you know after I learned that public accounting really wasn't my jam, I was kind of over doing 10-hour days at that point, especially coming out of the military. And so I transitioned over to, I'm sure you guys have heard of Magpul before.
Yeah.
So I worked over there with those guys for two years and some change, and their supply chain department doing their plastic injection molding and all of that. And then now I'm at a job that is a lot more my speed and a lot more comfortable to me I'm a bank auditor for my day job.
Okay.
And when I was at Magpul was when I really started to have that strong push to start my own cigar company and start the business. And then when I was there, I started it all. And yeah, I mean, and ever since, I mean, it's been off to the races.
Okay. Well, I came over here to get myself another drink, and I just happened to see something here that I think you'll probably think is pretty cool. Even if you don't like the man. First, let me show you the outside of the bottle here.
Oh, interesting.
It's got a little flak jacket on here. I got another one here with the.
Now, who makes that?
I think it's America First. Or it's let's see here. Yeah, I think they're called America First Distillery. I think. Let me look. Paul, do you remember what they're called?
Yeah, it's America First Distillery.
Okay.
They source. It's a release.
Oh, I
Yeah, it's a Trump release, but they
oh,
got the cool
Oh,
flak
that's
jackets.
funny. The flak jacket and shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool
it's,
thing.
Oh man, that's funny.
and,
I love
and,
that.
I mean, it's even, you can even take that
Oh
off. I mean,
shit.
it's pretty sick. But it's funny that you got into when my dad left the Marine Corps, that he's been an accountant ever since. That's what he does. Which is weird. Because he didn't do any kind of accounting or anything like that when he was actually in the Marine Corps. So, but that's what he's done for 40. Let's see, I'm 42, and he got out right before I was born. So he's been doing that for about 42 years, I guess. Well, no, he worked for
Damn.
Coca-Cola for a while, and he went to University of Kentucky, and then got his accounting degree, and then he's been doing it since then. So I guess since I was about 7, so 35 years.
Damn.
And he's retired. He retired once from private sector, and then he went back to work for the Army Corps of Engineers at Fort Knox, and took the buyout in March.
Oh.
So it's kind of crazy that you ended up doing finance. I was going to say you don't look like an insurance salesman. I'm just going to throw that out there.
No, that wasn't me. That's not my personality, man. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love talking to people. But like, again, like, I love talking to people, not in the sense that I'm trying to sell people stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I like talking to people because, everybody has their own personal story, and, and it's always so fascinating to me, especially like, for example, I'll give you a perfect one. There was I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard of Murdoch's. It's like a ranch store that's predominantly out west. And essentially, they had this group, this like Christian-based group, essentially that was out front, and they had like hand carven wooden crosses and jewelry and all kinds of stuff. And I was chatting with the guy, and of course, the dude is letting the guy actually talk and just, my grandfather always told me, you have one mouth and two ears, and sitting there and listening to the guy, and the guy's a convicted felon and was a prior gang member, and, just kind of listening to his story. I mean, it's super fascinating. I mean, and it's awesome to see, especially, with that individual specifically, turning something that was once negative, and obviously they reshaped it into something so much more positive. And it's no, I mean, I'm just not an insurance guy. I'm not a used car salesman. I'm not a car salesman at all. I'd be terrible. You know what I mean? I'd be talking all damn day and wouldn't get a damn thing sold. You know what I mean? I'd be fired probably day 3. I'd be fired.
Well, I mean, car salesmen, the ones that are more successful in my experience are the ones that are a little more chatty, right? I mean, they open themselves up, seem to be, even if it's a facade, seem to be a little bit more personable. You feel a little bit more comfortable buying something from them because you think, they're not trying to fuck me over.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not they are. Some people just turn it on. We call those people sociopaths, But so one final question from me, and then Paul probably has some drummed up in his head too. Why Wyoming? Since you were in Maryland, I mean, that's the other side of the damn country. But I mean, even if you're going to go to the other side of the country, why Wyoming over Washington or Montana or California or Oregon?
Yeah, no. So we wanted, when I got out of the military, and my wife was a couple months pregnant at that point, and I told her, and it was kind of a collective thought between the two of us, that we wanted to go somewhere that was pretty rural and remote, but again, also being an accounting guy, I wanted to go somewhere that, tax wise, it made sense. I didn't want to pay state income tax and things of that nature. So we kind of looked at a bunch of states that fell into line with that, and looked at a couple other states that, that didn't really meet that, but we were still kind of interested in. And one of those was Iowa. We drove out to Iowa obviously we went to Iowa when we drove out to Wyoming, and we enjoyed that. And we were like, man, this is really pretty, whatever. And when we got to Wyoming, I don't know, like there's something about it. It's very wide open. It's very quiet. The people here are very friendly and they kind of keep to themselves more often than not, unless you need help. It's kind of what I thought of when my grandfather would talk to me when I was a kid about, help your neighbor kind of thing. They're gonna reciprocate and whatever. And so here it's very much, if you're in trouble or you have questions or you're new, like for us, we'd never lived out in the country. And so our neighbor next door is 75 years old. This guy's lived out in the country his whole life. And so we were able to kind of pick his brain on what to expect and you know how to winterize our well and our house and all kinds of stuff. And and the other big driving factor for Wyoming was it was quiet. So in
Yeah.
Maryland, where we were at, um, and not only is it quiet, but the population density is the lowest in the country. And so at the time, I really had a hard time with crowds. I had a really bad time with noises and kids screaming. Those three were the biggest issues for me. And between the sirens and the gunshots where we were at, I was like, yep, I can't do that. I'm gonna be on 13 every day, all day. And then, and again, I would go into, say, like Costco, and I wouldn't be able to actually be present because I would feel like somebody's staring at me. You
Mhm.
know, we always were taught where we were at, that you had to keep your head on a swivel because of the job you were doing. And so the paranoia was really terrible. The jumping from loud noises and loud bangs was really terrible. And not only that, but again, of course, where we were at, there was little kids all over the damn place. Not that that's a bad thing, but at the time, it didn't. I just could not be comfortable and I couldn't relax. And it's hard to get your head on straight and get an idea as to what's next when you feel like you're in fight or flight all the time. And for me, it was always in fight. Like I remember telling my wife, Liv, I was like, I can't live here like this. Like I need to move. And so when we moved out to Wyoming, we've been here for 3 years now, and I mean, and it's been beautiful. I've been able to actually take time and get the space from other people, I guess like the general public, if you will, and focus on myself and get myself together and get myself in the right mindset, get myself on the right track to go to the VA and start that process, and take care of my mind and you know in the way that it needs to be dealt with, and or at least how my mind needs to be dealt with. And so no, I mean, I attribute a lot of my recovery, if you will. I mean, I'm not fully unscathed by everything anymore, but I mean, it hurts me and it affects me a hell of a lot less than what it did, 5 years ago. And that was the big factor with doing the cigar company, because I mean, I, you know how fucked that is if you are on the opposite, like you made it to the end of the dark tunnel and you're standing in the light now, but when you look behind you, there is all of your brothers and sisters that are suffering, and they're also trying to find the end, but they just, either they're having X, Y, and Z problem or whatever may have you. I just felt so uncomfortable by the idea of me being better, but not doing anything to help someone else.
Sure.
Um, and so, no, Wyoming has been a big, and plus, we've met some very dynamite people out here, which I'm very thankful for.
So I messed up, and I do have one final question. I'm sorry.
You're good,
Could
man.
could you walk us through the process of starting your own cigar company? 'Cause I don't think that we've ever asked anybody that we've not had a whole lot of cigar folks on here. So how did that all happen?
Yeah. So it takes time because I mean, as you can imagine, Google doesn't really want you to figure that out. So you kind of have to play around with the wording. So obviously, you want to make sure you check. For me, I checked Wyoming state's laws for tobacco, or they classify it as OTP or other tobacco product. So that's what cigars fall into. And you just want to make sure that you're following, or at least that I'm following the laws and the guidelines that they have set in place for especially shipping and things of that nature, and doing your research on different states throughout the country to make sure that they don't require any extra licensing or anything like that. Like a prime example is you said Hawaii, so I'll use Hawaii. Hawaii, you have to have written consent and a license to be able to, like, a Hawaiian license or a Hawaii license for tobacco, to ship tobacco or cigars into Hawaii. And if you don't have that consent or that licensing, you will have a Class C felony and fined like $25,000 or some shit.
Yeah.
Well, they're not
And
fucking around in Hawaii, are they?
no, they're really not. They're not fucking around. And so those are the little things that, like, we made sure, when I say we, me and my wife made sure that we were tracking. And, because there are other states, like South Dakota is a different one. Like, they're not as involved as that, but they do make you have your own sales tax and tobacco license for the state of South Dakota if you want to sell and ship cigars into there. And then, Utah is another one that's kind of a pain in the butt. And so that was a big chunk of it. And obviously, you want to file the whatever kind of corporation you're doing. So like for us, we did an LLC. You could do a C corp, S corp, whatever may have you. And then I mean, that's really it. And then you kind of set up like the bank accounts. You set up the website to the website and the POS. That comes with its own set of hurdles in itself, because some websites like Wix or whatever, even Shopify, to give you how weird some of these places are and convoluted, they don't mind if you sell, like if you list the cigars on Shopify to sell them, and you can use their website to do so, but you cannot use their POS to buy them.
Okay, well,
So you have to plug in a third-party POS system, and now you can purchase the cigars. So like before I took my online shop, took the cigar sales off, so like if you went into the cart, I mean, hell, even if you did it now, if you went into the cart and at the very bottom you said hit proceed to checkout, it'll redirect you to that third party's secure checkout page, essentially. And so it's just those little nuances that you kind of have to be careful of. And and when I was in school and all of that, I remember reading like statistics on like business startups and everything, and the statistics of them failing within like the first 1 to 5 years. And as being a business owner that is coming up on, I mean, a couple of days will be my first year fully, I can completely see why businesses can get, tanked, essentially, because they get hit with these little things that are almost overlooked, but they can't be. Like, you have to turn every single stone, and especially when it comes to tobacco, I mean, you can't leave a single stone unturned. Because the cards and the government's eyes, with the ATF and all of that, is already stacked against you. So you have to do everything you can to mitigate any kind of bullshit, fines or whatever may have you. And that's really the process. I mean, and then, of course, you have to look at the avenue of, what cigars do I want to sell? What blends am I curious to doing? What is the band going to look like? What is the company going to be called? Where the hell am I going to source the bands and the cigars? I mean, that's your bread and butter. That's your namesake as a company and a cigar company, right? It's your core product. And so once you kind of have all of those checked, and especially like the cigar side of it all, you're essentially, if you're with a manufacturer or a factory that's worth a damn, they should give you those cigars that you have blended to sample. And once you come out and you're like, okay, I'm good. Like I love these, whatever. And then, now you put get the bands together, you put the names to the cigars, whatever it may be. Our cigar names are a little bit different. They pay homage to certain things or certain people. And again, and then, that part's over, and that I would classify that as the hardest part. And then I would look at the sales part and the marketing and all of that as fun. It's challenging and hard, don't get me wrong, but I've always looked at it as a challenge, and it's a fun challenge. And yeah, I mean, that's really my brief overview of kind of start to finish of what all that looks like, or at least my thought process going into it.
Okay, so as many steps as possible.
What does that process look like when you want to come up with, like, say, a new cigar, a new label for you? You reach out to your partners, the manufacturers. Do you give them guidelines? They send you samples. You give feedback.
Yeah, so it's
like?
really, for me, it's really as in depth as I want it to be. So if I have an idea of specific tobaccos, so say like I want like Criollo 98, or I want, Cameroon, a Cameroonian binder or something along those lines, you can give that to them. And I try to do that the most I would, if I can say that, because essentially what you're doing is you're kind of outlining what you're wanting in that flavor palette, or that flavor profile rather, to that master blender. And what's nice is my master blender will look at that and be like, yeah, that doesn't make sense, dude. Like you might have to change this for this. And it's like, oh, okay, that. And now for me, it's teaching me what kind of aligns more, because again, it's just like with school, right? You can learn something all day in a book, but once you actually get out there and you do it, there can be complications that arise and makes it not work, right? And so that's really what I do. And then the other stuff, as far as like the 1,000 yard stare, I got with our, the master blender for that factory in particular, and said, hey, I want to do a 7 1/4 by 42, but I want to make it different. Like I don't see hardly any Pennsylvanian broadleaf Lancettes or Lanceros. I want to do something like that, but I want it to be full flavor, and have it be just a flavor bomb and not so much of just a punch. You know what I mean? And so for him, and for that example, I mean, he knew exactly what tobaccos kind of aligned with what I was telling him, and then sent me samples of it. And and so that's really the two different processes for it. And as far as the bands go for the kind of the label on the cigar, that is, I mean, that, unfortunately, that's usually coming from me or my wife. My wife is more of the graphic designer. She's got a better eye for it. And so with her, especially, I'm able to tell her kind of what I'm envisioning loosely and kind of blurry, and she's able to sharpen it. And then we end up sending that to the design team for that factory, and then they'll create the image and send that back to us. And then we'll either refine it to sharpen whatever up that we want to portray, or we'll just go ahead and run with what they have already cooked up and get it going and get it on the cigar.
Very cool. Now, you said you've been in for about a year now. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Are you on a path where you are happy and content with what you're doing, or are you aiming for growth and expansion?
Yeah, I'm very happy with the trajectory that I'm on. I'll say that. Being around 30 shops before my first year, I mean, that's something that at least I don't really see too often from companies that are in their first year. And I'm very proud of that. I mean, I've worked my tail off, and I'm going to continue to scale and work my tail off, and hopefully in 5 years obviously my goal is to be very common in these humidors around the country. And because again, I mean, the more that I can get out there and I can get exposure, the more I can get people to have eyes on what we're trying to do here. You know what I mean? And so it's that's really what I want. I mean, obviously, like, I would love to be able to be in the position in 5 years to where I can have my own warehouse and have more staff and employ the disabled veterans here in Cheyenne as as part of my core employee groups, and and give back to the community in that way rather than just those donations, and just kind of have that as an add-on. And so those are kind of the goals that I'm having for these first 5 years, is keep working my tail off, and again, trying to do everything I can to give back.
Yeah, it shouldn't be long because um, at least like part of the whiskey Instagram and then the cigar portion of Instagram has literally thrown you guys out there. Like every time I see something, it seems like one in like 3 cigars is a Silent Hero cigar right now. It's and when I first started seeing it, probably close, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, I didn't realize that you guys just started.
Oh yeah.
So I started seeing them. I think I've commented on a few things here and there, and I was like, I got to get some cigars. And then I started researching them, and then I was listening to, I think it was either Smoke and Sound or um, there's another cigar one that I listened to that you guys were on, or you were on, and you said, it started like 6 months ago. And I was like, oh, these guys just start, and I'm seeing them everywhere. I was like, so you're getting some free publicity and free marketing through Instagram, and it's everywhere. So I can't see you guys not exploding here within the next couple years, and hopefully get everywhere. I'd love to see you guys down here in Florida at some time. I think the closest one is North Georgia, where Paul has a small shop by him. But talk about that. What because I think there's like 3 online retailers.
Yeah. Yep.
Which one? I was looking for them. You got Toro Cigar, and what was the other 2?
So you got Toro Cigar, you got the King's Cigar Club, and then you have Wolfpack Cigar Club.
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, I was looking on that. One of them I pulled up the other day. I just put a random 5-pack, because I'll do that. I'll put a random 5-pack in, or 5 cigars in, just kind of see shipping. And I was looking for, I think it was King Cigar, 5 cigars with free shipping. Like,
yeah.
I think it was like $11 or $12 per cigar. So you're looking at $50-$60 for a 5-pack and free shipping. You can't, it's hard to beat that. And then I got a little fun one. When like you have a hard day at work or whatever, you just want to come home, grab a cigar, and sit down. 2-part question. 1, what's the cigar that's not a Silent Hero cigar that you're picking up? And 2, are you listening to podcasts, music, TV, or are you just going to sit in silence? You're out there in Wyoming, there's a bunch of nature. You're just going to sit there and listen to the nature.
Yeah. So I'll come in and, dude, it kills me. It doesn't kill me. I'm happy for him, because my favorite cigar for the very longest time has been that My Father Le Bouche. That just got the cigar of the year. Yep. And not that I'm saying I hate that for them, by all means. I definitely don't. I love to see that cigar gets the love and the shine that it deserves. But I don't want somebody to think like, oh, he's just jumping on the cigar of the year. No, I've been smoking that for a while. And so I'll go in there and grab one of those, and it kind of depends. It depends on what kind of, if it's a mentally taxing day, as far as like work was kind of hard or stressful or whatever. I'll end up grabbing the wife or whatever and going outside and sitting there and chatting with her, and hearing about her day and making sure that she's doing all right. And if it's a mentally taxing day, as far as maybe it was a tough day for me internally, I'll go out there and I'll just grab a cigar. I'll grab a bottle of water or whatever, or if it's cold out, I'll grab a coffee, and I'll go out there and I'll just sit there and just decompress. And again, that one more day slogan that we use, dude, that's that hits home for me. That's I've lived by that for a very long time, and so it's just, again, it's kind of taking the time and decompressing. But I mean, I will say, like, if there is a podcast that, say, like, you guys are having, like Real Smoke or the Smoke and Sounds guys, the cigar dudes, if there's something like that going on, I'll usually jump in there and tune in for a little bit and, say hi or whatever. And then I'll just hop off and, again, I'll just go back to just kind of decompressing and doing my thing.
Yeah, I was visit Adams up in or up for me, over for you, in Kentucky, and I was visiting. I think it was November of last year. No, 2 years ago. Yeah, he took me to the cigar shop, and I've had I don't know how many My Father's cigars, and I found that one that you were talking about. Never had it. Just saw like the cursive writing on it, whatever. I was like, I'll try this while we sit down and have a drink. That's a fucking killer cigar.
Oh yeah, dude.
That's one that's always in the humidor. And then, like you said, it won cigar of the year or whatever that award was. And I was like, I hope this one doesn't, because in the whiskey world, when it wins one of those like best whiskeys of the year award, you go from like Paul's probably gonna know this one. It's a bottle that was like a $35-$40 bottle. Next thing you know, it's $100+. You can't find it anywhere.
Yeah.
I was like, if this cigar gets jacked up in it was, I don't remember what I paid for it, but I just remember it being right in line with everything else. But it was a killer smoke. And
Oh yeah.
I always have My Father's in there, but I try to keep that one, and then obviously you got the Judge that stays in there. But
Oh yeah, the Judge is a good one
killer
too.
smoke.
Yeah.
Killer smokes. Do you see any trends in the cigar world right now? Like, are people going towards more of a Connecticut lighter smoke, trying to get more darker smoke, like Maduros or anything like that? Is there any trends that you see, or is it just random?
It's a good question. Me personally, I mean, I've started seeing people that are, typical Connecticut smokers. They've started smoking Connecticut's that have a little bit more body to them. It's not, excuse me, it's not like the typical Connecticut where it's real light and you're just kind of smoking to smoke, right? It's Connecticut's that have a lot more body to them, than what they used to. And it has a lot more flavor behind it as well. And, so I mean, that's something that's been really eye catching. And then I've also started seeing, as far as like the cigars growth, I've started seeing people trying to blend cigars to meet the aspect of everyone, not just like a particular demographic, but just, something that's applicable, that is universal almost, where, and they're trying the best that they can to, so it's not just, oh, well, I only smoke full body and I'm only going to blend full body, because again, I mean, there's a saying that I heard one time that getting a full bodied smoker to come down to a medium or mild is doable. But getting a mild to medium cigar smoker to come up to a full body, now you're asking a lot. And more often than not, they're not going to do it because it's, either they don't enjoy that type of smoke or they're too intimidated by that type of cigar. And so that's kind of something too that I've picked up on that people are trying to do. But other than that, I mean, I think that's really it. I mean, and again, people are just trying to, I love seeing other small cigar companies coming out and, because again, I mean, it's their blends and it's kind of an expression of them as a cigar smoker. So, I mean, it's fun. It's fun to see.
Is there any like specific size that has been selling more or less? Obviously, you got, I think all yours are 5x50s. Well, for the most part there, but is there like, are Toros or Churchills selling a lot more than Robustos or anything, or is it still just all over the place?
It's funny. I usually have a conversation with my rep, once a week about that exact same thing. And Robustos are like the golden child right now. I mean, Toros are good and they get bought all the time. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's kind of between the two. I mean, and I think right now it's heavily more towards that Robusto size. which is interesting.
Yeah. For me, like I know the flavor and everything changes depending on whether you have that 7-inch Churchill or the 5-inch Robusto or whatever else. For me, it's more or less time. Like, if I know I only have an hour, I'll go for the Robusto. If I got a little bit longer, I'll get something a little bit bigger. But it's interesting that the Robusto is kind of outselling, or at least seems like it. A little bit smaller, a little bit, I don't know. This one that we smoked today, I think it took about an hour, a little over an hour, about hour 15, hour 20 to smoke through, which I was actually quite surprised. It a lot longer than I thought it would be. But fantastic smoke all the way through. And I got one more fun question. Favorite cut? What's your favorite cut? V cut, straight cut, punch, biting it?
Dude, if I've got it on me, I've got a V cut, but I don't just do the V cut. I usually do a cross cut.
The cross,
crown, or
whatever you want to call it.
Crown cut, yeah, whatever you want to call it. But if I don't have my cutter on me, I mean, dude, I'm just taking my thumbnail and I'm just taking the top off. I tried to bite it in the past, dude. I would take every single time, dude. I would take the whole fucking triple cap off. And I was like, I'm done with it. I'm done with it. I'm just gonna peel the top off with my thumbnail and just call it a day. Every time.
Yes. You guys, either one of you guys have any other questions or anything?
I'm out. Paul?
No, I'm good. I really enjoyed the cigar. It was very well with both pours I had. I had a rye and a bourbon, and I mean the earthy chocolate note was predominant throughout.
It was fantastic. Really that's the note that stuck out to me. And I had a Redwood Empire rye, which is a little bit of a sweeter floral rye. I had that Westward, which, like I said, is more chocolatey coffee note, and then I brought out a Sagamore sherry finish, which is probably one of my favorite pours to go with any darker cigar. Obviously, for me, I think it went better with the Westward just because that chocolate coffee combination, but it went fantastic with all three of those. That sweetness of that first rye, well, the Redwood Empire rye that I had going with that earthiness kind of gave a nice little contrast, and it was definitely pulled some different notes out of the cigar and different notes out of the whiskey that I didn't get originally. So yeah, it's fantastic cigar, and I don't typically smoke it to that note. Like usually I get to that 2 inches or whatever, the smoke gets a little bit too hot and I just put it out. That was a great smoke all the way through, and the burn line, that burn line is,
oh yeah,
it's like a damn cartoon, Drew. It's like straight. So yeah, hats off to you for these blend, or at least this blend. I haven't had anything else yet, but I could have imagined with the other ones. That Founders one definitely piqued my interest with that Mexican San Andreas wrapper. I've started to find out that one's starting to creep up on one of my favorite wrappers. That
oh yeah,
I've had a few. I think we had one, was that last week, Paul, that had the Mexican San Andreas on it, and well, no, Adam, Paul didn't get it because his package got crushed by UPS.
Damn, yeah.
Yeah, that one had a Mexican San Andreas, and I've had a few others, and that's starting to slowly creep up to be one of my favorites. So looking forward to eventually grabbing that one eventually soon, maybe through one of those retail shops that you were talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just it's a good, I really enjoyed the take that I had on that one. I mean, it was one of those where, again, I wanted to open people's eyes up to it. You know, it's not a matter of every single Maduro's got to be so bold, man. I mean, you can have a full flavored cigar without it being, a full punch to the face as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you mentioned the Warfighter guys. It's been been a little while since I've had it, but they got a Maduro that seems to be the same. It's full flavor, like 100% flavor, but it's not a punch in your face. Like, and it's a dark cigar. Like,
right.
You look at, you think you're going to get you're going to sit there and hallucinate or whatever, but it's not. It's actually like a nice medium plus like body cigar, but it's full flavor. So those are always nice ones. You get the flavor, but you don't get that punch in the face that knocks you on your ass. And now you got to figure out what you're doing with your life for the next 2 hours while you recuperate.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Jerry, you mentioned that you'd like to see him in Florida, and I only know this because I was looking to see where the closest to me here in Kentucky is, and when you know it, Florida popped up in that list. They are available according to the Silent Hero Cigar website, the Find Us tab, in Pensacola.
Yeah.
That's
and
a drive for Jerry, but yeah.
the Georgia might be closer to me.
So that one's actually a mobile lounge, and so they actually go all around in Florida. So I mean, I'm sure you probably have seen those guys, the War Dog Cigar Company.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, so they actually have their own mobile lounge as well, and so if you follow those guys, I'm sure they probably end up putting on there where they'll be at for that given weekend or whatever.
Yeah, I see some. There's I mean, Maryland and I don't even know how in the hell it's telling me Casper, Wyoming is 100. No, never mind. I misread. Anyway, Maryland, Pennsylvania are pretty much the closest I'm going to get, and I'm going to be going up to New England this fall, so I'll make sure to make a little. I'm driving, and we're driving my car, so we're driving with my rules. So I'll make sure to take a little detour into Pennsylvania so I can stop at that store and pick a few of these up. So
absolutely.
Well, guys, I think that brings us to the end. This episode of Bourbon Beards and Belvederes. Be sure to check out these products on SilentHeroCigar.com. Like I said, there's a finder, so you can look and see where you might find some closest to you. It might not be very close, but from my experience with this particular cigar, give it some time, and they're going to be available everywhere because this was a great smoke. So So we appreciate you joining us today. It's been great talking to you. Great hearing your story and the story of your company. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Likewise, it's been a pleasure.
Anything else you want to throw out there before we sign out?
No, I don't think so. I mean, like I said, I've got some stuff in the works and a couple other, annual releases that I'm working on. But like I said, I'll keep everybody in the loop and we'll go from there.
Sounds good. Yeah, like Adam said, SilentHeroCigar.com, Instagram. You guys are on Facebook and all that stuff too?
Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah, you could find them there. But yeah, definitely check these guys out. Great cigar. Bryce seems like a great guy for this last hour and a half that we've been with. Yeah, thank you. Like we all said.
For sure. So, as always, make sure to support veterans. Make sure to support active duty military, first responders, any way you can. Check out various charities. There are tons of them out there. If you need some help figuring out what's what or whatever, you can reach out to us. We'll be glad to help you. But we want to make sure to keep that awareness out there and get folks to give when they can. And then, of course, support children. The world's nuts. I see videos all the time of people trying to run away with kids in the middle of the day. So let's look out for the most vulnerable among us and take care of them all in any way we can. And until next week, cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah.
Beards and Belvederes is produced by Adam Bolden, Paul Rousseau, and Jerry Ullman. Editing by Adam Bolden. Music by Ryan Johnson. You can find the links to all our social media accounts on our website at bourbonbeardsandbelvederes.com. As always, enjoy your bourbon and cigars responsibly. Cheers!